Eric, let me point out the obvious, which is even with a 25% rally, Activision's trading at 82 and the deal price is 95.
Right. Well, I think that reflects, one, you do have obviously some risk arb that you're dealing with, but I also think there are some concerns with this deal as a result of investigations and lawsuits going on regarding its internal issues. But at the end of the day, I think the deal will go through.
Do you, Eric, anticipate regulatory pushback? Because we just heard from Lina Khan talking about their increased aggressive posture against deals almost without the usual justification, almost just because they're deals from big companies. And people are saying even if this were to go through, it could take 2 years to complete.
It could take some time to complete, but at the end of the day, given how broad the gaming market is, and it's not like Microsoft is the dominant player by any stretch of the imagination in this market, I don't see regulatory issues being a problem.
Russ, maybe you could speak to that a little bit. What is the positioning, okay, of all of these companies in gaming, which has become so important? And Microsoft has to be one of the top 5, if not top 2 or 3.
Yeah, they're absolutely up there. And for Microsoft, there's no question where their focus is. Predominantly, they are having so much success in the subscription space with their Game Pass service. They just announced that they hit 25 million subscribers with that. So by having all these acquisitions, they're essentially buoying that service and creating this Netflix of gaming that they've been dreaming about for the last decade or so, and it's finally hitting in a big, big way. I agree that there's some question as to whether it will go through, but Microsoft also spends a lot of money on lawyers to make sure that it will.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how genius is this move by Microsoft, Russ?
You know, I would say it's probably a 7. I think it makes sense. Their biggest hurdle that they need to get across is obviously Activision is in a tough spot right now. And, not, organizationally, it's been pretty dreadful. They've got the sexual harassment lawsuit, the gender discrimination lawsuit. So they've got to work overtime to make sure that Activision's reputation is fixed. And a lot of that has to do with continuing to remove some of the higher ups at Activision who have kind of fostered this environment.
Yeah, fair enough, although it does seem like an opportune time to come in and scoop up some assets on the cheap. We've also seen a lot of video game consolidation lately, Eric. We've seen Take-Two wanting to buy Zynga, and then really weird share reaction there where people really weren't sure what to make of that move. What would you say is most likely to is this going to set off a lot more M&A across the space?
Well, M&A has been going, on in the space quite a bit over the last couple of years. We're seeing a lot of consolidation. It's getting larger scale now with, the Take-Two acquisition that you just mentioned, today's Microsoft acquisition. This is the gaming industry. It's about a $200 billion a year industry. It's very fragmented. Platforms are expanding, especially now as we talk about the metaverse, and there's going to be several different metaverse platforms. And it's important for these companies to have owned IP that they can position on their own platforms to draw interest among consumers.
Yeah, and I know you're saying that, watch Sony, maybe they could look around at EA or Take-Two itself as the number of independently owned billion-dollar franchises with cross-platform potential become more scarce. Russ, what would you say as well? I mean, does Microsoft, are they a friend or foe of the video game industry? I mean, there's certainly a battle for control right now, wouldn't you say?
I mean, if this acquisition goes through, they are a large chunk of the video game industry. So friend or foe is a question. It's a question of whether we want, 4 or 5 major, huge companies essentially owning the marketplace, which it does in a lot of different sectors, and certainly gaming. This would push that even further in that direction. I think right now Microsoft offers a very good value for what they have in the space, whether it's through Game Pass or their games specifically. What happens after this merger goes through, as more larger companies gain control, they might change their strategy a little bit. It might not be as generous as it is now. Yeah. So kind of a question.